hasn't been anything. Say, who revealed the scripture that Moses brought as light and guidance to the people? You made it into pages, disclosing some of it and concealing much, and you were taught that which you knew not. Neither you nor your fathers. Say, Allah revealed it. They leave them in the empty discourse, amusing themselves. And this is a book which we have sent down, blessed and confirming what was before it, that you may warn the mother of cities and those around it. Those who believe in the hereafter believe in it, and they are maintaining their prayers. And who is more unjust than one who invents a lie about Allah or says, it has been inspired to me, while nothing has been inspired to him, and one who says, I will reveal something like what Allah revealed. And if you could but see when the wrongdoers are in the overwhelming pangs of death, while the angel extends their hands, saying, discharge your souls, today you will be awarded the punishment of extreme humiliation for what you used to say against Allah, other than the truth, and that you were toward his verses being arrogant. It will be said to them, and you have certainly come to us alone as we created you the first time, and you have left whatever we bestowed upon you behind you. And we do not see with you your intercessors, which you claimed that they were among your associates of Allah. It has all been severed between you and lost from you, is what you used to claim. Indeed, Allah is a cleaver of grain and date seeds. He brings the living out of the dead and brings the dead out of the living. That is Allah. So how are you deluded? He is the cleaver of daybreak and has made the night for rest and the sun and moon for calculation. That is the determination of the exalted in light, the knowing. And it is He who placed for you the stars, that you may be guided by them through the darknesses of the land and sea. We have detailed the signs for a people who know. And it is He who produced you from one soul and gave you a place of dwelling and of storage. We have detailed the signs for a people who understand. And it is He who sends down rain from the sky, and we produce thereby the growth of all things. We produce from it greenery, from which we produce grain arranged in layers, and from the palm trees of its emerging fruit are clusters hanging low. We produce gardens of grapevines and olives and pomegranates, similar yet varied. Look at each of its fruit when it yields, and at its ripening. Indeed, in that are signs for people who believe. But they have attributed to Allah partners, the jinn, while He has created them, and have fabricated for Him sons and daughters. Exalted is He and high above what they describe. He is the originator of the heavens and the earth. How could He have a son when He did not have a companion, and He created all things? And He is of all things knowing. That is Allah, your Lord. There is no deity except Him, the creator of all things, so worship Him, and He is the disposer of all things. Vision perceives Him not, but He perceives all vision, and He is the subtle, the acquainted. There has come to you enlightenment from your Lord, so whoever will see does so for the benefit of his soul, and whoever is blind does harm against it, and say, I am not a guardian over you. And thus do we diversify the verses so the unbelievers will say, you have studied, and so we may make the Quran clear for our people who know. Follow, O Muhammad, what has been revealed to you from your Lord. There is no deity except Him, and turn away from those who associate others with Allah. But if Allah had willed, they would not have associated, and we have not appointed you over them as a guardian, nor are you a manager over them. And do not insult those they invoke other than Allah, lest they insult Allah in enmity without knowledge. Thus we have made pleasing to every community their deeds, then to their Lord as they return, and He will inform them about what they used to do. And they swear by Allah, their strongest oaths, that if a sign came to them, they would surely believe in it. Say, the signs are only with Allah. And it will make you perceive that even if a sign came, they would not believe. And we will turn away their hearts and their eyes just as they refused to believe in it the first time. And we will leave them in their transgression, wandering blindly.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Continuing with the verses of An'am, there is a bit of a discrepancy about certain verses that they may have come in Medina and then later on included by the instruction of the Prophet in Surah Al-An'am. Of course, the Mufassirin are all unanimous that the Prophet was on camelback, and the whole of this surah was revealed unto him in one revelation. However, some are saying that the events of these verses may have reoccurred at different times, and hence the surah was revealed in one go, but with the passage of time in Medina, when circumstances arose, same verses were being repeated by the Prophet. Or on the other hand, the certain verses were revealed afterwards, and the Prophet instructed their inclusion in Surah Al-An'am, as he often used to do. What is important for us here is to analyze these verses as far as possible, trying to see the different aspects of what is being said, what was within the actual context of the revelation, the immediate context, as a pragmatic need of the context, what comes beyond the context, with the least amount of presumption possible. The change of accent within the verses, let us say who is talking, when, and what are the things and the factors that are dynamic in these verses. Now, either the Jews in Medina stated to the Prophet, according to Mufassirin, that no heavenly book has been revealed. Yes? Now their claim, according to Mufassirin, is that the scriptures of Moses and Isa are narrations recorded by other than Moses and Jesus. So it cannot be directly told to be a revelation from God. Or that the Meccans were actually denying the revelation of any heavenly book upon any soul altogether. In response to that, there comes this verse. However, the tone of the verse in itself is negating a presumption within the mind. They have not given Allah His true worth. Yes? Now here, the verse in itself is saying, it's challenging the mind, that look, you are probably presuming that Allah cannot reveal, or Allah cannot talk. The tone of this verse is actually negating that type of an assumption or a presumption. They have not given Allah His word when they say that Allah has not revealed upon a man anything. Yes? So maybe that was the presumption at the back of their minds, because their notion of God was a notion that was a very silent one, that this God is well above everything, and He would not talk with any human being, or that this God cannot talk with a human being, in whatever way they understood it. So now, it seems very much that it is not a refutation of what the Jews were saying, but it was probably a refutation of a certain mind that was there amongst the Meccans who did not believe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be capable of communicating to human beings, for the reason that there is this similarity between God and human beings. So this probably looks like a negation of that presumption that they have not given Allah His word when they state this, that Allah cannot talk to a man. After that comes the reasoning. Ask them, who has revealed the book upon Moses? Now you see that verse there. Now it's either the Jews or he's talking to the Meccans who are acquainted with the Jews, which seems highly likely. Now, the thing is, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying here is something that's supposed to be valid across the board. Whether it's the Meccans who are the immediate cause of revelation or anybody else, the verses have to be meaningful beyond that immediate context. Now, for me to state this in itself is an assumption, isn't it? And we said we would work on minimum assumption. But that is one thing with which we will need to work, and we will critique it as we go along. But on the basis that it has to make sense beyond its immediate context, then this makes sense. Otherwise, in its immediate context then, we will have to then try and understand what the Meccans were learning from the scriptures of those who were revealed to prior to the Prophet of Islam. Now, he says then, in that case, ask, who has revealed the book with which Moses came as a light and guidance for people? Now, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses the word light and guidance, if we take the theory of the immediate context being very, very relevant, yes, then that light and guidance will have to make sense, because the refutation of the Meccan would be, we don't know any book that's come to Moses, right? So obviously the verse will work. So first and foremost, if the Meccans were the context, they would attest, yes, we've heard of the book of Moses. Then after that, to describe it with light and guidance has to be confirmed by the people who are listening to this. Otherwise, what do you mean light and guidance? It's just a narrative. There's no light or guidance in there. But the fact is that the verse presumes that the people who are being addressed already acknowledge that this is a light and guidance in whatever way they understood light to be. Yes? Either then they might have this understanding that the priests or the sages amongst the Jews were very enlightened people, mellow in their demeanor, calm, very wise. They would say, actually, yes, there is light in there in that sense, and guidance in the sense that, yes, these people know what they're talking about. Then the next part of the verse makes it very, very clear that actually it is the Jews to whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking. So here we are trying to understand if it is the Meccans to whom the verse is being recited, then this part of the verse will not make sense. It has to be the Jews to whom this verse has been revealed, for whom this verse has been revealed. In which case, now it makes perfect sense. But then it's not revealed in Makkah, it's revealed in Medina, and then included in the Meccan Surah at a later date by the Prophet. Can you see that? Or we can have a third thing, that the Quranic language, as we carry on reading, is a very different type of a language. It addresses several different things in same breath. And people got quite used to it. That yes, this verse is coming on Muhammad, and that's why they used to mock. Look at what the verse is saying. Look at what the verse is saying. It's talking to us, and then suddenly it changes its accent, and therefore they're pointing fingers at the Prophet of Allah. They're saying, you know what, it doesn't make sense. It's gibberish. Yes? That would be the claim. On the other hand, we can see that no, there is a layered approach. That yes, this is relevant to Meccans for the first part, and the second part is using it to address the Jews and their mindset, even though they are not immediately there to listen to it. Now, they could be listening to it indirectly, but the verse is very, very direct. You write it in scrolls. You manifest some of it, and you hide a great deal. So this is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala now rebuking the Jews that look, you are doing this. But this is directly addressing the Jews. So you can see where the Mufassir's confusion is coming from. That was it revealed in Makkah, this verse, or was it revealed in Medina and then included in the Meccan verse? According to the way we have been understanding the Quran, we can say that it was revealed in Makkah, but the Quran has this layered approach in which it addresses several things simultaneously, in which it leaves itself open, yes, to naive and frail minds' criticism immediately. But today when we read this, yes, with the hindsight of everything that we have no objection with the verse. The only objection is when we go back into Makkah and begin to listen to the Quran as the disbelievers of Makkah, and we say, well, what is it talking about? Is it talking to us? Is it talking to the Jews? But if analyzed on its own merit, we say, well, it does make sense. But then again, we have this tendency to force sense into the Quran as well, yes? So it's very, very difficult to step away from it and look at it for what it is and openly try to see what it is saying. And in any case, and you were taught, you and your fathers, what you did not know. So here, clearly we are seeing that the Jews are being addressed in the second part of this verse as opposed to the first one. In any case, then the response comes, and this response that is coming in the verse is most befitting to the Meccan community. Say, Allah has revealed it. Yes? And then leave them in their vain pursuits. So here we know now it's talking about the Meccans, not talking about the Jews. So there is a simultaneous message being given. The only other way to interpret it is that we can say, well, maybe on occasions the Jews are transacting, yes, with the Meccans, because it's a capital for trade at that point. They are transacting with the Meccans are listening to the Jews are equally denying the revelation of the verse, and the Jews and the Meccans are all there. And this critique or criticism is being directed to the Prophet, and the verse is coming in response to all of them, in which case it makes sense. This changing of accents, simultaneously addressing the Meccans and the Jews equally. Then that would make sense with that presumption. Then this verse is saying that this is the book, which is a blessed book, which verifies what has been sent before, like the Torah and the Injil. Now look at the verse. And in order to warn the mother of the villages and those around it. Now here, the Mufassirin obviously have a difficult question to answer. That if it is there to warn Qura, then we are not Qura. We are well outside the Qura geographically. Yes? And we are not around Qura because we know immediately around Qura means other villages. And we are well beyond that time. So then, is this Quran only there to warn them? Here, the Mufassirin obviously have to give extensive explanations to say how it's relevant to one and all. But a person reading with a very open mind might ask this very simple question, that pragmatically, the Quran was being revealed in a time frame, in a context that was limited geographically. So the Quran has to make sense perfectly in that context. So there is nothing wrong. And here then, therefore, what we adhere to is the theory that we've been talking about again and again of form and essence. That the essence is obviously guidance. The form is that immediate context. And hence, it is restricted by that context when it is revealed in form and in essence. It is there for every mind that is thinking. Now, we ask a simple question. That if we were to take this literally, that it is only there to warn the Qura and those around the Qura, if this message has sense in itself, yes, then does it mean it's only relevant to Qura and the people around Qura? So for example, an instructor appears within the classroom, yes, a brilliant mind. He says, my only task, yes, is to convey this finding that I have to you. Does it mean that that finding, which is a fact in itself, discovered by that great mind, will only make sense to the congregation within that class, or that that finding will make sense to anybody who sees it? In this way, we find that the instructors claim that I have been commissioned by the university to convey my finding to you, the class. That is true. That is all his job. Yes? That my job is just to convey it to you, which is absolutely accurate. And at the same time, whoever then listens to that contribution as it gains popularity will immediately make sense of it because it is a matter of fact and it makes sense within itself. So the immediate context of the Prophet was to deliver it to Qura and those around Qura. That was what Prophet was commissioned to do. But the essence in itself, yes, is the heritage of the mind of mankind as a whole. Now then, there was a person who was a scribe of the Wahy. As he wrote the Wahy, he came to a point, he says, you know what? I can say the same thing as the Wahy is saying. Of course, when you start writing, like, some of the verses can give that impression. Talking about Moses and talking about Jesus and learning the lingo of the language, immediately, well, I can begin to say these things as well. So anyway, there was a person there who stated that I can say these things and began to say things in the name of Allah. Now, here is also a tendency that we have in the mind. If I were to read the scriptures of other religion, I will say, you know what, I can also say this. It's the same tendency that was there prevalent at that time. Now, that person who was scribe of the Prophet and writing the Wahy, and he begins to understand the soundings of the Quran and the themes that are there, because the themes are repetitive, aren't they, within the Quran. He says, you know what, I can say the same thing, or a person can begin to attribute things to Allah that Allah hasn't said. Now Allah is saying who is more unjust than a person who fabricates on the name of God, or he says it has been revealed unto me as well, or he says that I will reveal what Allah has revealed. Now, here Allah is saying, who can be more unjust than such a person? This verse in itself presumes that such a person knows that they are within themselves being dishonest. Because if I were to make a claim that whatever is in the other scripture, let's say a new religion comes up, yes? And they have a book. And if I were to read the book and I say, look, I can do the same as he is saying, or better than him, then in that, would I be the most unjust person? Because I truly believe it. I truly believe it. I would not be the most unjust person. So it seems here that the people who are involved in this are people who know that their claim is false. And then they are doing it. And hence that constitutes the greatest injustice. We explained the meaning of adlam and dulm, darkness. And Allah means in most veiled state, most darkened state, which means that they are totally cut off from guidance. In the sense that they know this is wrong, and wrong is the only thing that they will do helplessly. The other thing that gives it away is the fact that the verse is stating those who fabricate in the name of Allah. So they are admitting there is Allah, and then they're fabricating in His name what He has not authorized them to do. Or they are saying that Allah has revealed unto me, which is a false claim, and they know Allah hasn't revealed unto them. Or they are saying that I will reveal what Allah is revealing. Yes? In all of these cases, they have acknowledged the existence of Allah. And in some way their claim is to do with God in a way in which God has not commissioned. So God has said this, whereas God hasn't said it. Yes? God has revealed unto me, whereas God hasn't revealed unto that person. Or that I will reveal as God is revealing. In all of these three things, there is a direct confrontation with God. And hence that acknowledgement that there is God, and that He is doing this, whereas God is not doing this, brings about this state of most injustice, or greatest injustice. And this is quite different to a claim of an ordinary person when they say, that look, I can write as well as he can write. Yes? I can come out with wise statements as much as he can come out. This does not constitute the transgression that this verse is talking about. This verse is talking about direct transgression against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is where we also sometimes fall victim. When we read other scriptures, and in denial of them without comprehending them, we may arrogantly say that, you know what, Allah has said this and this and this as well, in arrogance. Or maybe that it would be better than this Allah can reveal to me, without comprehending those verses. In any case, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sees this state as a state of arrogance and willful denial. Look at the next part of the word, of the verse. Because this was happening, and the Prophet was dismayed, because the Prophet himself is a very sincere, genuine, and simple soul. Allah is saying to the Prophet, now if you were to see the oppressive people in the throes of death, now look at the way the description is, and the angels have stretched out their hands, commanding these people, exit yourselves. Bring out yourselves. Now, Ali ibn Abi Talib asks a question in Hajj Balagha. Does the angel go within the womb of the mother and retrieve? Now, I'm going to be very careful. I'm going to use this word that the Quran is using, the soul and not the spirit, yes? Retrieve the soul of the fetus, or does the soul of the fetus emerge into the lap of the angel? One of the two happens. Now here, the Quran, as we've been stating again and again, it talks about eternal truths. And it talks about it within the verses. Now it needn't have been this descriptive, and it would have sufficed. But the Quran is very particular about describing things, so that in the future date, when we actually disclose those things, we find that the sequence is yielding a meaning that is accurate. For example, somebody asked me today, he said, if I were to say to my daughter, if you eat sweets, there will be spiders in your mouth. He said, would that be a lie? Because I know my daughter will grow up and understand that I was only telling her that because that was the only way a 4 or 5-year-old will understand. And later on she will thank me. I said, well, what's your point? He said, my point is, can God not talk in that way? Say things that would make sense to us within our limitations, and yet not be absolutely accurate within themselves, because they serve a purpose. The answer is obvious that no, God would have to say things which are sufficiently ambiguous so that they are true to an unripened mind, and they have to be true to a very ripened state of mind as well. Otherwise, if not in the time of revelation, beyond the time of revelation, it can be criticized that this is totally inaccurate. Can you see that? It's totally inaccurate, and that is something we haven't found with the Quran inductively when we have read the Quran. So now this description, أَخْرَجُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ, take out your own souls. It's not talking about spirit. The Mufassirin are talking about spirit at this point. The spirit is taken. But no, the Quran is saying take out your souls. So it does seem that when the spirit is no longer accommodated by the body, the soul emerges. Yes? But it also seems that whilst the spirit is still engaged within the body, the human souls whose journey is completed will take birth into the other world, whether they like it or not. When their journey is completed, they can no longer be accommodated by a body which can still continue living. So we are seeing two types of deaths. One is when the body can no longer sustain life. When the spirit, let's say, cannot be accommodated by the constitution of the body, and then the soul has no longer a place to accommodate it, and it just relieves itself, or it emerges from that, yes? From the womb of the body. Of course, the fetus and the womb, the human soul and the body, the analogy is different. The fetus is wholly alien within the womb. Yes, created by the womb, but alien entity. The human soul is not an alien entity. It seems to be intertwined fully within matter, and it emerges from it. But this seems to be a particular point in life where an evildoer has reached such a point of culmination, of completion of their trend, negative trend, that they are no longer able to stay within the body because there's nothing else to be gained in that journey. The next verse says, you have come to us solitarily, alone, as we created you the first time. Now, Surah Maryam also repeats this. If we were to just imagine for a moment, yes, and introspect, we will see that we are all individuals. There is nobody sharing my journey. I am on my own here. There is nobody sharing my journey at all, because of that fundamental level of which I say, I am, or who am I, or am I? What is it all about? That question is an individualistic question only. There is nobody sharing that question with me. It's my unique consciousness, that's it, that makes me be. In whatever I interpret me to be, in whatever I interpret I and identity to be, it's only me. Now, when I sit here, all of you may be there in your own right, but you only mean to me what you mean to me, whether I give you that meaning or I passively receive that meaning, but it is my world in which you are sharing. Similarly, it's your world and your world and your world and your world in which everybody else is sharing. And hence it is true to say that there are 6 or 7 different perspectives and universes all together that are in their own different worlds, and yet they feel that commonality and they share it. So here the verse, of course, the Meccans would have understood very differently that, look, yeah, we came to this world alone, we're dying alone, so on and so forth. But this verse is quite telling to every soul that, look, you are alone. It is your world, it is your journey. At the same time, it actually empowers us that if it is my individualistic journey, then how much ought I to be influenced by anybody else's perception of this life? Surely then I should have a free hand in how I experience life and how I understand it and the truth that I receive from it. The verse carries on. You have left behind whatever we had arranged for you. This again is saying that, look, and we find verse upon verse emphasizing this meaning, that the whole of this world, the situations in this world, whatever we receive, was already factored in, was already planned. Yes? I was born to parents, not to the best of my understanding, not of my choice. Yes? I was born in an environment not of my creation, it predated me. The language was given to me in the cradle. My economic circumstances were already set in place. My geography was already there before I came into this world. When I look at it in that way, everything was already determined and arranged, and this meaning is going to be further emphasized in the next few verses. So now, he is saying, you have come to me individually, as I sent you individually. No, you have come to us individually as we sent you individually. This again might be emphasizing agency of God and other than God as a whole system, that we might be dying and going to a whole different realm where it is not me and God only, but it's another world in which it has its own dynamics. But in any case, you have left behind whatever we set up for you. And we do not see the intercessors that you used to presume were sharing in authority with God. And everything has been severed. All ties have been severed, and they have faded away from you, whatever you used to pursue. So now you are alone, now you awaken, and you begin to understand that everything in that world of yours, worldly life of yours, was set into place, very meticulously arranged, very properly, for a particular reason. You shared life with others, but it was your unique life, the one that you went through. There was a task at hand, but in that task, you have actually failed. This is what the Quran is trying to say. You are alone, everything else has been arranged, there is nothing other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that's what you're supposed to find. The next verse actually emphasizes this. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala breaks open the seed and the date stone. Now, why would the verse state this? He is actually emphasizing the verse before. Can you see that? What the verse before? On many occasions, these actions are attributed to angels. But here, it is being attributed to Allah only. You see, the verse before is saying, you are coming individually as you are created individually. All the intercessors are not really there. The associates are not there. Whatever you had with you, you left behind. It's only you. It's only you and what you are becoming that is important. Nothing else matters. It's only you and your relationship with God. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, look, all these associates, all these intercessors are actually not there. Whether it's a great prophet or Ali ibn Abi Talib or whoever it is, it's not really there. They are only there in a very different way after you mend your ties with God. And then maybe everything else starts making sense. But fundamentally, nothing makes sense before that relationship is struck. So you're saying, look, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who breaks open the seed for it to grow. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the only one who opens the date stone. So if his involvement in your life is to this extreme extent, you really and truly need to contemplate and reflect. Going back to this understanding that the Quran is trying to say far more than what appears immediately is this. He brings out the life from the dead and the dead from the living. What that shows is that death precedes life. Yes? Death precedes life, and death is also a post-mortemic state. Yes, death is also post-mortemic, after life, and there comes life after that. This sequence in itself shows يُخْرِجُ الْحَيَّ مِنَ الْمَيِّتِ. There is a mayyit. So death is the cradle from which life emerges. And life leads to a further cradle of death, from which a different life emerges once again. It's a cyclic thing, yes? And it's an evolutionary state. So death, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala always describes in the Quran, and this is the amazing thing about the Quran, that the sequences are always accurate. He will always maintain death before life in the Quran. كُنْتُمْ أَمْوَاتًا فَأَحْيَاكُمْ. You are dead, He gave you life. خَلَقَ الْمَوْتَ وَالْحَيَاةِ. He created death and life. The sequences are always the same. If the Prophet was uttering these things, then it is impossible that you have 5 different surahs, and in 5 different surahs, the sequence is absolutely accurate. This is one of the wonders of the Quran, that it's always the same sequence whenever it's giving certain truths. In any case, the verse is saying that He brings forth living from the dead. Yes? So an entity is dead, He brings the life out of that dead. Not that dead means the opposite of life in the way we understand. Death and life are 2 different states in which me and you progress in an evolutionary cycle. Yes? So death is a state of potentiality for me and you. Life is a state of actuality, where we begin to contemplate and have discretion. The death that comes after life is a death of heightened sense of perception, knowability. The life after death brings back a doubly heightened sense of perception and activity, so on and so forth. He is the one who breaks open the morning and has made night for rest, and sun and moon as a means of calculation. Now, if we were to look at the world like this, we would say actually it's a very well organized and arranged world. It's a pre-programmed world in which things are already arranged. We are going to do those things anyway. In night, of course, we have a hadith that says you have to rest at night. It's made for rest. The Imams used to say nikah should be performed at nights. That's the right type of nikah. Animals should not be slaughtered at night. It's a time for rest for every creature. Yes? The Imams used to be very, very particular. The prophetic hadith about night is quite telling, in which he says, look, night is for rest. Rest at night. Imam Ali used to say, sleep at night. It's meant for rest. That time is there for you to regain your strength. When we look at this universe, we will say, subhanAllah, if only somebody's eyes can open to the fact of this universe and how it's functioning. Look at the sun and the moon, and he's talking about the stars in the next verse. And He has made stars within the sky so that you can be guided aright in the day and nighttime. He has made all these things very, very knowingly and placed us here. So for us to find our way, it seems as if it's all pre-programmed. It's a pre-programmed world in which me and you are the only unique point of realization, of consciousness, that are supposed to do something, find something in an otherwise very closed circuit world. Of course, there's a profound sense of intervention, a profound sense of randomness, yes, that is unfixed, but we can discuss that at another time. Verse 99 still goes on to talk about this very determined world, which is extremely planned. And we cause water to descend from the heavens, and through that we bring out different types of fruits. Contemplate and think about this, that this is all happening by itself. How did it get so right? It is all a knowing being, and a knowing being is very intimately involved within the making of this world. Now he's using a word here. You see, and then they make associates with Allah of jinn, and Allah created them, so on and so forth. And kharaqu, actually, it's quite nice, this contrast. وَجَعَلُوا لِلَّهِ شُرَكَاءَ الْجِنِّ وَخَلَقَهُم. They make associates of jinn with Allah, and Allah has created them. We spend a bit of time on khalaqa and kharaqa, and then after that. وَخَرَقُوا لَهُ بَنِينَ وَبَنَاتٍ بِغَيْرِ عِلْمٍ. Kharaqa means to fabricate, but kharaqa means to cut. The contrast here is with khalaqa and kharaqa. In khalaqa, it means design, to fashion something. And Allah says Allah has fashioned, but they care for Him. Caring means just ad hoc, haphazardly, randomly. When you tear out pieces of clothes and this is for you, this is for you, there is no system to it, there is no understanding to it, and there is no validity to it. So the Mufassirin often say that look at the beautiful contrast Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is making between khalaqa and khalaqa. Yes? But look at the next verse. Badi'u samawati wal ard. You see, he could have used the word khalaqa or khaliqa samawati wal ard. It wouldn't have made any difference to the Meccans who are listening to it. They wouldn't know any better. He has used the word fatiru samawati wal ard previously in the same verse. Fatara means to break open, to split something. Yes? Fatara. And of course, we know from our theories and of course the verses of the heavens and the earth being together, and Allah tears them apart. Yes, those verses we discussed last time around. وَكَانَ الْأَرْضُ وَالسَّمَاءُ دُخَانًا وَكَانَ السَّمَاءُ دُخَانًا, or something like that. And he says to the earth and the sama, come to me, willingly or unwillingly. And they both say, we are coming to you willingly, and he makes them into 7 heavens. There he uses the word fatara. Fatara means that there was already something there, like a gaseous cloud. Or the Big Bang, if we subscribe to that theory, where everything begins with a very, in a very humble state, or as Imam Sadiq describes, a newly charged particle, or as modern physicists describe, yes? That state of inflation, and after that, matter takes birth, and time and space takes birth. But the thing to remember here is that it is all clustered together, and then it is torn apart in that process. So Allah uses that word fatara there. But that then means from that point. Here, there is a much more clearer understanding before the stage of fatara as well. Badi'a samawati wal ard. Now, bada'a means to initiate it, to originate it from, according to many, no design previously, or from nothing. Yes? There is nothingness, and from that it springs forth without any example for Allah to work from. That is the word badi'a, bada'a. I'm just saying, look at the beauty of the Quran in its utility and choice of words that it's using. It's not using the word khalaqa because khalaqa comes at a later date. It's not using the word fatara because fatara comes at a later date. Prior to fatara and khalaqa is a state of bada'a. To initiate from nothing, from no example. Ali ibn Abi Talib's khutbah on the creation of the cosmos, the very first one or the second one, is very descriptive on the word badi'a. He says, without any tools, without any similarities, without any examples, he just initiates and originates. So bada'a means to originate it. So now people will say, well, how does he originate it all? How can something come from nothing? Yes? The fact that they forget is that there is no state of nothingness anyway. There is Allah. Can you see that? Yes? There is Allah. The mistake that we are making is, well, how can something come from nothing? The answer is there is no such thing as nothing at all. Yes? Allah is always there. The thing and nothing, thingness and nothingness, are a later development from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? Because this is how I would try to explain is that, enemy of God, people normally place Iblis as contrasting force to Allah, which is absolutely wrong. Iblis is initiated by God, right? Shaitan is created by God, just as Jibreel is created by God. Heaven and hell are created by God. They're not inconsistent with God at all. He is the author of the hell as he is the author of heaven. He is the author of Iblis as he is the author of Jibreel. Jibreel and Iblis contrast each other. Heaven and hell contrast each other. They don't contrast Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So thingness and nothingness contrast each other. They don't contrast Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yes? So when people say, well, how did he originate? The answer is, he is always there, never cease to be. And maybe we're looking at it in a very different way. If a person were to get that spiritual enlightenment and intuitive insight, they will begin to understand that this universe is not what we think it is. It's a thinking being and of a very, very profound and lofty nature. But in any case, those people would not have understood this, not in the slightest. Yes? But it is for others to reflect after that. So it makes sense to them because they would associate Badiya with Khalaq anyway. So now, he is saying that how can he have a son? So this verse in itself suggests that the first verse that we were looking at was not revealed in Medina, it was revealed in Makkah, but the Meccans had the community of Jews and Christians interacting with them or sharing in the trade within Makkah, and those thoughts, beliefs were all prevalent and were all mixed, and Quran was addressing all of them at once. Now, how can he have a son? Why? How would God have a son, although he said he doesn't have a wife? Because if God is an entity that originates, yes, then that entity cannot have anything else similar to it as a spouse. In things that he is originating, there are similar entities that can pair up man and woman. But if God is that entity that originates the heavens and the earth prior to the stage of khalaqa, yes, then how can he have a spouse that is similar in nature to him when everything is a product of his origination? So how can he have a son when he doesn't have a spouse? And quite rightly, if he is the originator of all things, of the heavens and the earth, then there is no other entity that is equal to him. Because prior to the heaven and the earth, there were no contrasts, there was no similarities. Can you see that? There were no opposites. Hell becomes the opposite of heaven once they are originated and created. Man becomes the opposite of a woman once the world has been originated. Night and darkness, darkness and light can contrast each other once they are originated and created. Prior to the state of origination, there is no notion of duality. So if there's no notion of duality, then how can he have a son when there is no spouse to him? That all comes post-origination. Can you see that? Yep. And then he uses the word وَخَلَقَ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ, and he created everything. So Badi comes first, the originator, and then the creator in the sense that he fashioned. Because creation comes when there is something there and you have to fashion it. Anyway, it says he's the creator of all things. Worship him. Not the sight or vision cannot comprehend him, and he comprehends all vision, and he is subtle, most knowing. Now, I can only give an example here because quickly we have rushed through this. You see, we can comprehend by vision something that is other than us, or that is something that can be seen. Now, the theologians will say, well, God cannot be seen because he is too lofty, he is too transcendent. On the other hand, there is another way of understanding this verse, because this latif gives it away. He is very, very subtle. Being very subtle means that something that is ever present becomes hidden and becomes subtle within itself. For Allah to say that he comprehends vision and sight, for Allah to say he is all-knowing, he is removing the distance between the knower and the known. Can you see that? I can't be all-knowing of the constitution of this table. I can't be all-knowing of your mind because there's a distance between you and me and you. Yes? I can only be all-knowing of you if your thinking process is are nothing other than me. And in that subtlety, you are thinking it's you, but it's actually me, involving the whole process of your own thought. Can you see that? To draw the analogies of the Sufis, when the fish started questioning that we hear we were created from water, but we haven't seen water. So they go to the wise fish and they say, well, show us water. We hear that you have seen water. So the wise fish says, show me other than water, and then I will show you water. Because surely there is nothing other than water in the context of a fish, because they can't live outside water or comprehend beyond water. You can see that. This is exactly the analogy that is befitting here, that he does not comprehend vision. The vision cannot comprehend him because he is not an isolated event or an incident. Yes, but he comprehends vision because it is nothing but he who is actually, in the real sense, existent. And my saying, I am, is a sort of awakening that is pulling me towards him and his awakening. And that's it. When you say I am, this I am is not created and cannot be destroyed. The only thing happens is that it's suspended at night when you sleep, and it resumes when you wake up. It's never destroyed, it's only momentarily suspended. Have you ever noticed that? In our sleep, we can be extremely aware in our sleep, yes? And we know the dreams that we are having. Or we can get knocked out for patches. But when we wake up, we resume from the place where we fell asleep. And that in itself is such a baffling phenomenon. And Allah explains this in the Quran, we read it a few weeks ago, that He is the one who completes you at night times and takes you. Isn't that amazing that I say I am, immediately suspended? Something that is totally me. And then in the morning it resumes itself whenever I wake up. Then I am comes back. But where is it gone? This I am at that intimate level, nobody else has discretion upon it but me. Nobody shares in that I am but me, this uniquely me. But even that goes, it's suspended and it just resumes itself. Yeah? So anyway, Allah is saying He is subtle and He is all-knowing in the sense that there is no distance between the knower and the known. The known is the knower in itself. Anyway, we want to go to the last verses. Now they asked the Prophet, they said, make the mountain of Safa into gold and we will believe in you. Jibreel said, look, we can make it. I will make that into gold for you, Allah is saying. But if they don't believe, then we'll destroy them. Now this is the same thing that happened with Isa in Ma'idah. Isa said, don't insist for me to invoke God to provide a miracle. They said, no, we want to. So Isa said, oh Lord, descend upon us a banquet from heaven so we can all partake and it can be a day of festivity for all of us. Allah said, if they disbelieve after this, I will punish them in a way I don't punish anybody else. Those who disbelieved were turned into pigs and monkeys, according to what we read. Yes? And Allah rebukes them. The same thing happens here. That look, if the miracle were to come, then they will be punished immediately. Or do you want to wait, O Muhammad, until they repent and they come back? So the Prophet said, I would rather they repented and they came back. So don't show them that miracle. Now, in order to comfort the Prophet is being told that look, only Allah can send miracles. And then the Prophet is being told very privately in this verse that, oh Muhammad, don't despair. How do you know that even after sending a miracle, they will still not reject it as they rejected it in the first instance? You see, we are mostly predisposed. And we only ask things mockingly. A lot of the times we do it genuinely, but a lot of the times it's done mockingly. For example, if somebody is giving a rational argument, then that rational argument is the greatest miracle in itself. All these people who denied the Prophet in Makkah and were mocking at him and caused him to exit Makkah, all of them converted, every single one of them converted. On the strength of the Prophet's rational argument or on the prevalence of Islam. One way or another, they all converted. And they've been Muslims since. So the greatest point that convinces the person is a rational argument. Yes? Now, if a person is adamant and then asks for miracle, then they're going to most likely deny that miracle in any case. Unless it's an Abrahamic state, in which case he asks Allah, how will you resurrect the dead? And Allah says, shall you not have faith? He says, no, it's not a question of faith. I have full faith. But in order for my heart to become content, that is a different level. We can say, oh Lord, rationally I'm totally convinced, but I want to take that leap of faith now by seeing all of the things that I believe in transpire before my very eyes. Asking for miracle prior to that are only two types of people that look, I'm really convinced, I'm really confused. If you want to show me a miracle, I'll believe in you, that's a genuine person. But together with that is an adamant denier as well, who is only mocking because a rational argument is supposed to convince. That's the only thing that's supposed to convince. Miracles are secondary. So we are finding that both of these groups of people are there. And so Allah is saying, if I were to give a miracle, I will not spare them after that. And the Prophet is saying, give me respite. Let me wait, let me convince them. Yes? So now the Prophet is regretting and despairing. And the Prophet is being told, Muhammad, how do you know? Don't despair. Even if we were to show them a miracle, they might still disbelieve in you like the first time that they disbelieve in you. And we can turn their hearts and their eyes as if they never believed in it in the first instance and let them be in their blind transgressive ways. So don't despair. If Allah wanted, nobody would have associated with Him. So you don't despair. Now, these verses, I've just skipped quite a few of them, but I'm going to go back, one or two. These verses are saying to the Prophet, look, you're not a guardian over them. It is every soul for itself. Your job is just to convey it. Don't worry about the rest. If had Allah wanted, they would not have associated with it, but Allah wanted them to be in those fixed contexts of association, of poverty, of denial, of being adamant, and for them then to be challenged with these rational arguments, and for them then to open up, because that's the whole story that we are after, that they become sincere and challenge their own selves and begin to open up. And that's the whole challenge of life. If they don't do that, it's nothing to do with you. Let it be. Now, there is a verse, 108, and with this we'll finish with that. وَلَا تَسُبُّوا الَّذِينَ يَدْعُونَ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ فَيَسُبُّوا اللَّهَ عَدْوًا بِغَيْرِ عِلْمٍ. There were many Muslims who started cursing Lat and Uzza, yes, the gods of the Meccans. This verse comes, and of course the Prophet has then repeated this, the Imams have repeated this. Do not abuse the people who invoke other than Allah, thus causing them to abuse Allah in enmity without any knowledge. This is basic psychology, isn't it? It's basic psychology. Allah says to His people that don't swear at Muawiyah and his people. Explain to them their actions. Attribute to them what they are doing, and then leave it to them, because that will be the greatest admonition. But don't swear at them. Why? Because their natural reaction would be to become adamant and swear back at Allah. Or swear back at whatever you are proclaiming. They will say, yeah, we believe in Allah, but the Allah that you believe in is like this, like this, like that. Yes? Why? Because we have embellished the truth, we have beautified for every people their own actions. I often wonder why 95% of the people end up proving the faith of their birth. A Shia will prove the faith of their birth, a Sunni will prove the faith of their birth, right? A Christian theirs, Hindus theirs, Jews there. This is a particular thing that's deliberately done. We're all the same in that, yes? We're all the same in that. The thing we're supposed to do is, within that context of our religion, we are supposed to be challenged at all points. The biggest calamity is for a person who is complacent in thinking that they are the truth. That is the person who faces the greatest damnation, because that is a person who's least open to a challenge. Yes? So anyway, on the one hand, the verse is saying that everybody will find righteousness in whatever they are doing. That's the way we have hardwired them. That's the way they are programmed. And therefore, if you were to abuse anybody, the natural reaction will be to abuse you. And the only true people, the Prophet has been told, you are not a guarantor upon them, you are not their savior, you are nothing to do with them. You are only there to convey this particular message, which is then supposed to challenge them. وصلى الله على محمد وعلى آله وصحبه. I think we've taken too long, right?
Yeah.
Sorry.